So I want you to just imagine that you didn't need to earn more money. You simply needed to notice where it's quietly leaking, or maybe where there's a big leak. In today's episode, I'm going to show you how to find money in 3 simple, practical steps so you don't have to cut back on your lifestyle and you don't have to overcomplicate your life. So let's dive in. Welcome to the Millionaire Insider Podcast, formerly the Wealth Inside and Out podcast. I'm Annette Ba'u, certified financial planner and founder of the Millionaire Insider. For over 36 years, I've been advising individuals and studying the habits of the upper echelon of millionaires. And here's what I can tell you. Wealthy people don't just focus on earning money, they also focus on protecting what they have. They pay attention to the detail. We're talking about one of the most overlooked wealth building skills out there. And finding money is not that difficult. You just have to pay attention. So I'm going to teach you how in 3 simple steps. And I'm even going to embarrass myself on a big one, almost $5,000 that I recently discovered. For today's show notes, you can go to themillionaireinsider.com/153. As you know, we are creating the money course, and we want this course to be the best money program available in the market. To make that a reality, we need your help. If you can go to themillionaireinsider.com/MCI, you can give us insight on what you would like to see in that program. So again, themillionaireinsider.com/MCI. The reason I ask for your input is because it's hard for me to know what level to teach the money course at. A huge portion of it will include your financial foundation and your retirement plan. That said, there's a lot of different areas where we can cover insight so that you can get on track so that you can achieve your goals. And that is my number one priority. So again, themillionaireinsider.com/MCI. If you want to schedule a meeting to where you can have your situation reviewed, you can go to themillionaireinsider.com/5Q. We ask you 5 simple questions that help us determine how we can best support you. So again, themillionaireinsider.com/5Q. If you don't yet have $500,000 worth of investable assets, I encourage you to start at the financial checkup. You can go to themillionaireinsider.com/FC. Our financial checkup is similar to a medical checkup. We help you diagnose and look at where you are now, as well as what potential problems you may have and what is the next best step to getting on track to achieving your goal. You can access it at themillionaireinsider.com/FC. The Millionaire Insider copyrights all materials and intellectual property. This information is for educational purposes only. It is not intended to replace any advisor or specialist or to provide any investment, financial, tax, retirement planning, or healthcare advice. By accessing this content, you agree to hold millionaireseries.com and its affiliates harmless for results achieved or not achieved. So number 1, you got to pay attention to details and ask questions. Most people think people lose money by bad investments, and clearly that's one way. But what about some of the smaller, unnoticed details, such as like automatic renewals, subscriptions that we no longer use, insurance riders we don't need, duplicate charges, and even medical bill errors? It's so interesting to see that when you look at how wealthy people make decisions and what they do, one of the things that's almost always prevalent is they ask awesome questions. Why did this bill increase? Is this necessary? Do I actually need it? What am I paying for? Are there other options? So recently, I found an error that literally generated almost $5,000, $4,800 to be exact. We moved over to a voice over IP phone at my office about 16 months ago. And recently, the box burned out for our internet, so they had to send a tech out. So we're without internet in our office for a day. So that was, a hassle, and we were anxious to get it fixed. And so when I called in, because I had to call and talk to the person because I was one of the people on the account, she said, "Well, which account?" And I said, "The internet. We only have one account." And she didn't say anything. She's like, "Oh, okay, yeah." So she said, "Yeah, you gotta, get somebody out there." So we get the person out there, and he says, "Well, you have 2 accounts here." He goes, "One of these is for the phone, one's for the internet." No, we got rid of the phone like a year and a half ago. And he said, I don't think so. He goes, this looks like it's still hooked up. I'm like, oh, that's interesting. So we get done and I pick up the phone and I call. And the first rep I talked to, I said, we have two accounts. No, you don't. You have one. You have the internet. And I go, well, we just had a tech out here and he said we had two. And actually, one of the people I'd spoken with, yeah, as I mentioned, also said we had two. So he goes, no, I don't think so. And I said, well, I want to understand. I want to know what's showing up on my account. So he's like, well, hold on. So he's like, oh, okay, I do see another account number here. Yeah, I guess you do. I guess you do have an internet and a phone. I'm like, what? And I said, well, we canceled that phone like a year and a half ago. And I said, how much have we been paying for it? We had been paying $300 a month. Now, part of that is just some things that you think, like, how could that have happened? Well, we don't get a physical bill. We never have gotten a physical bill. And I don't even know where they send the bills. But looking back on it, I'm like, the challenge when you start getting a lot of assets and you have a lot of invoices is that it's hard to keep track of all of them. And even with help from a bookkeeper and an accountant, they don't know what we have. And so the bottom line is we still have to be paying attention to that. So after going round and round, I said, well, gosh, this is a problem. So I said, what can I do to get a refund? So, I went through the gyration. The person that actually helped me in the billing was actually the person we had canceled the service with because I had it in my records because we keep pretty in-depth records. Then after he found out it was him, he got a little defensive. Make a long story short, he's kind of like going, well, it was your responsibility to cancel it. We did. You obviously didn't cancel it because it's still in existence. You should have told us within a certain amount of time. He agreed to escalate it to his manager. So I talked to his manager, real nice guy, but he said, it's really our responsibility. And I said, well, I appreciate that, but we canceled it. We've never gotten an invoice. And so it's kind of like, it's not just our fault that we've been paying for a service that we haven't had. They went back and did some research. He came back and he offered to give us a couple months free. And I'm like, a couple months free? I mean, it was 16 months. That's $4,800. So then he offered to give us a credit. And I said, I still don't think that's fair. I mean, I paid the cash. I should get it back. I did not think I was going to. I might add that. I thought for sure we'd get a credit. And he goes, well, we'll give you some credit because, we have like 4 different services with them. And so that's what I figured they'd do. But he came back and it was so interesting. So they must have pulled the records because thank goodness we had really good records of when we contacted them. We called in. We had a record from our new support group for our voice over IP of when they gave us the email to say to go ahead and cancel it. So we had all that backup. And they said, where do you want the money sent? And just like that, $4,800 was actually even a little over $4,800 they get back. The key there, though, is you got to keep good record. And my bad for not having the invoice. And it's really caused us to start looking at our different invoices and make sure we're getting them. I will take some ownership on that and the fact that I should have been paying more attention to that. It could have cost me a lot more money than this had I not identified it. But one of the things I also want you to get from that is somebody, oh, no, you just have one service. Wait a minute. Somebody told me this morning I have two. The tech that came out said I have two. I want you to look into it. Had I not pushed that and asked the question, I'd still be paying an extra $300 a month. And for some of you that don't have a lot of expenses, you're like, oh, that would never happen. Well, that may not happen, but number 2 may. For some of you that have a lot of assets or have a more complicated situation, it's very easy for something like this to happen. So we got to pay attention. All right, so that's number 1. Number 2 is you got to know the normal range of what you've got as far as your service, meaning what's the normal cost of services, the high and the low. Most people overpay simply because they don't know what's reasonable, right? And when you understand the range, the high and the low, you gain knowledge and you're more prepared. You make decisions from knowledge and insight as compared to fear or ignoring it or whatever it may be. Examples can include like even reviewing your home insurance, those premiums that keep going up, or comparing what you're paying on bills, like say, for instance, your cable or your phone. Sometimes people, don't want the hassle of getting quotes for services. I mean, we had our kitchen cabinets done here at our cabin. We were going to get new ones, $35,000. And then I'm like, I was just watching, I love watching HGTV. And like, they did all these cabinets and they just painted them. I'm like, why can't we do that up here? I didn't mind the cabinets. I just didn't want them looking maroon. I wanted to be white and darker. And so we got quotes. One of the quotes we got, who actually had done a ton of work for one of our neighbors, they wanted $8,000. I ended up paying $2,000. I mean, that, my friends, is just simply asking a few more questions. So let me share with you another big faux pas. This is an embarrassing one. So we own this cabin. I actually happen to be here right now. For in the summers, for several years in the summers, our water bill was really high. And I just assumed we have tons of trees. And I just assumed it was because of the number of trees we have. We then got a notice finally from the water company saying you might have a leak. They came out, they couldn't find one. So I was like, okay, it just seems like it's really high. I mean, it was really high. It was like $300 more than anyone I knew was paying. We got another notice. Oh, I think you have a leak. Came out, couldn't find anything. So finally, they came out and I said, you're not leaving until you find the leak. Like, I'm serious. This is ridiculous. Our bill is so high. You know it's high. We know it's high. And guess what? They found a leak. But it gets better. We literally were paying somewhere in the tune of like $1,000 more per year for over 20 years, like $20,000. And had I been more persistent up front when they said, you think you might have a leak and said, find it, I probably would not have been spending that much money. So again, that was one of those things of just paying attention and looking at the high and the low. And then, you can be polite, but being like, no, you're not leaving. You know there could be a leak. We know there's a leak. We got to find it, right? We're on the same team. There's no point in us using extra water, which kills me. It's such an issue in Arizona, let alone paying that much more money. So we got to know the range. So that's number 2. And then number 3 is you want to review invoices and pay attention to details. Now, this sounds simple, right? But oftentimes it's not done consistently. Money leaves quietly. It doesn't announce itself. It's just kind of like every month this money goes out and you don't even realize where it's going. One of the best things you can do is make it a habit of reviewing invoices line by line to find money. And I will tell you that's probably the fastest and easiest way you can find it. Some examples could be like, say, just a gym membership where you don't need it, but other ones can be where they're adding on something, or you have an overcharge, or your insurance increased. And by just simply changing a little bit as far as the coverage, you could get it back down to where it was. Or maybe it's even incorrect distributions from retirement. There are so many options where you just have to pay attention and look at it. And I'm going to share with you one that we just had. And it just has gotten me realizing that we need to be paying more attention. So after this happened with our phone bill, I had one of my team members, I said, I want you to start paying attention to some of the other bills. And if we're not getting them, we need to start getting them. And we need to start looking at what we're being charged for. Well, we found out that our home package of services, they have been charging us $18 a month. And it ends up being that we paid a total of about $2,160 extra for, I think it's HBO. We don't watch HBO. Now, we already have Netflix. We've got a few different ones, streaming services. $2,160. I don't care how much money you have. That's a lot of money. And I was like, you got to be kidding me. It was just one little thing they added into our package. We didn't order it. We didn't ask for it. They just added it on. Those are the things I'm talking about, my friend. So what I encourage you to do is just start taking a little more time. Start paying attention. What you need to do is you need to look at your bills. You need to be paying attention to what the normal range is, and you need to be really noticing either things you're not using or things where they just add something in. I'm going to give you another example. All right, our cabin where we're at, the phone, we have a landline that ties up to our security system. Well, the only reason we knew it wasn't working, because we don't really use it a lot, was because our alarm gave us an error message. So we called them. Oh, of course, they can't come out. So they couldn't come out for a month. And I thought, God, can't you imagine having a business where someone calls you and you're like, okay, I'll get around to that in about a month. So anyway, they finally got around to it today. Didn't even have to come out to our cabin, called, and they got it fixed amazingly. Switch of a button, right? I didn't even think of saying this because I was so glad that they got it working. And my husband's standing there and he's like, "So, do we get a discount for not having service for a month?" I'm like, "Good question." And so the guy said, "Well, you might." And then the other guy that was in his car was obviously listening in and he said, "Yeah, this is what you do. If you want a discount for the time you didn't have the service, you call in our main number and you say loyalty." And he said, "Just keep saying loyalty until they transfer you to the loyalty division. And the loyalty division will give you a credit." So my husband made a call, 5 minutes, and they're giving us $80 off our bill. Another example. Now, I was so glad that it was working and our alarms working and everything like that. I wasn't even thinking. But that's how we have to be thinking. We have to be thinking like, are we being overcharged? Are we being charged for a service we didn't get? Are we getting charged for something we didn't even order that's just embedded in our bill and we don't even know what it is? Those things add up. I mean, here we talked about this. You start adding it up, 1,000 here, 5,000 there, 2,000 there. Before you know it, I mean, you know what? I'm well over what, 25, 26, 27, I mean, almost $30,000. My friend, that's a lot of money. So let's recap. I hope this motivated you and didn't overwhelm you. So, number one, you got to pay attention to the details and ask questions. And when somebody says, "Oh, no, you only have one bill," say, "Wait a minute. A customer service agent earlier said I had two, and the text said I had two." You've got to look a little deeper and then zip it up and let them look a little deeper. That, my friends, made me almost $5,000. Number two, you got to know the normal costs, the high and the low. And then when they tell you you have a water leak or something, pay attention and don't let them get off. Say, "We got to find this leak. It's somewhere." It's amazing to think back on that and think I was not firmer in saying, "Hey, let's find this." And granted, they're doing the best they can do, but we can also be our own advocate and encourage that. All right, step three, you got to review those invoices and pay attention to the details. I'm excited to continue reporting on this, but I mean, just by finding an extra $2,160 after finding the 4,800, I'm completely motivated. And I hope you are too, because by paying attention, you're going to be able to find money. And the best news of all is that you aren't going to have to change your lifestyle. You're not going to be cutting into what you want to do, and you're not going to be complicating your life. You're simply going to be making informed decisions so that you know where you're spending your money, you're not overspending, and it gives you more to spend money on what you want. Meaning, I would rather spend this, $30,000 on a trip with my family, on maybe even giving more money to my favorite causes, things like that, things that, feed my soul as compared to just wasting it away. Until next time, I want you to take one step toward creating that financially secure life and retirement you love. You're going to be so glad you did. So I'll look forward to seeing you on our next episode. Bye for now.